Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited about having our wonderful guest, Françoise Bourzat, here today. I'm going to read Françoise's bio. Françoise holds an MA in somatic psychology from New College of California, in San Francisco. She trained in the Hakomi method also in San Francisco, and she has been an adjunct faculty in the East-West Psychology program at the California Institute of Integral Studies from 2012 to 2016. Since the early 90s, her interest in expanded states of consciousness for healing and growth has led her to teach courses, lead seminars, offer lectures, and develop a private practice based on exploring the potential of these states. Her book, Consciousness Medicine, gathers her experiences and knowledge of the potential of such states as they are practiced in various cultures and how they can be adapted to our psychologically focused practice. Her website is francoisebourzat.com, which we will share in our link. And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And today we're going to be having a conversation about women's mental health. And I wanted to just briefly share with our listeners how I have come across your work. And I came across Françoise's work, and I learned so much through one of your episodes, podcast that you had done a while back, and that led me to read your book, Consciousness Medicine, and it led me to join a book club about consciousness medicine, and I learned about the inventory for a balanced life, which I applied to myself and my work with clients, and ultimately, with your permission, we were able to offer this wonderful resource on our website, aureliapsychology.com. And I'm a clinical psychologist in Dubai, UAE, and having worked here for a few years now, my business partner, Madeleine, and I learned that most of the content that is mental health related and for healing is Western based. So for an average person in Dubai who might have any particular struggles with panic or depression or anxiety or anything that they might search online, they might end up either on a clinic website that leads them to read a very shallow definition, quite medically based, which is written for marketing purposes, or they might end up on a website that's not even here. It might be a website in the US or Canada. And so our mission has been to help our community to have access to resources that are very much a closing of the gap between Eastern and Western philosophies and approaches to mental health. So we have carefully been gathering and curating work that has a wider perspective and not just limited by the medical model that's quite Western. So your perspective and work has been unique because your approach has been holistic and has helped bridge this gap between Eastern and Western ways of healing. So this leads us to where we are right now, which is a few questions that I have for you about women's mental health. And the first question that I would like to pose is the question I have, and I've been pondering on as a therapist myself, which is as a woman who has worked in the psychotherapy world and with various forms of healing. I'm curious about your experience and I'm curious about what you see as common challenges when it comes to mental health for women. And so I just want to open that up and just get your perspective on this.
Well, thank you. And thank you for providing such a pool of service and resources for the people you're serving in Dubai, who are in fact sort of far away from accessing other resources, and maybe resources that are not fitting their reality. So I appreciate that. And So my observation in being a therapist, counselor, and working with a vast population, of course, over the years, is that I noticed that the world of psychology, psychotherapy, has been essentially developed by men. You know, the fathers, we call them the fathers of psychology, were men. The people who have written a lot of books are men. Over the years, of course, there have been very, very meaningful women, but they're far and few. You know, they're really quite the exception, unfortunately. Probably why my book was kind of well received, also because it was a book from a woman for the people, with an angle of a womanhood looking at life and balanced life, and the psyche, really, from that angle. So what I see is that, you know, women have been um, not considered in the field of psychology enough, and that means that, you know, women, I'm going to say we are wired differently. You know, our psyche is different, our level of sensitivity is different, the way we perceive the world, our wisdom comes from a different place, almost, in our bodies. We are more intuitive. I'm not saying men cannot be intuitive, but we tend to be more intuitive, more emotionally based, more, more gut feeling. We have more gut feeling that generally men are. I don't want to be too extreme in my definition, but that's a ballpark. And so women are less identifying as intellectual, and I put that in bracket because it doesn't mean they're stupid by any ways. I mean, we're very intelligent. We're very capable of great things, as we know. But the intelligence we have, it's less analytical, or it's less exclusively based on intellectual and analytical angles. It's based on a lot of intuition and feeling and being informed by different places in our bodies. Also, we are more body centered. That comes from, you know, being connected with our body every month through our menses or period or bleeding. You know, we are connected with our body on an ongoing basis. And then some of us have children. This is a big physical experience, and nursing, and this oxytocin bond with the child. This is a hormonal state that very much informs who we are as individuals. So we are informed by different things, right? We have, you know, pre PMS, you know, before our menses, and then later on we have premenopause, and then menopause. We are regulated by a lot of physical elements that affect our mental health, that affect our emotion, affect our mental states, right? I mean, when we are before our period, we can be, you know, emotional and sort of more tender and less able to think properly. We may get depressed or anxious. That affects our mental health. And those situations have to be considered in the psychology we apply towards the women population. I educate some men. I have kind of made my goal a little bit to educate men in how to serve their women population, to sensitize them to those aspects of hormonal flow. I don't want to call it imbalance, because it's not imbalanced. It's just on a hormonal flow that they're not aware of in their own reality in the men's world. The reality of having a child, what that means, what that journey of 9 months means in a woman's life, how it impacts her, how it informs her, how it changes her, and raising young babies and children and teenagers. I mean, the role of the mother is, you know, unique and very important. So yeah, as women, we are definitely physiologically impacted by mentally by what our body goes through our lives. And, you know, once I had a teacher at school who, he was a man, and I gave him a feedback about that. That was a long time ago. And he had us do a timeline, which is one of the exercises I had in my book club, I think. Do a timeline of your life from birth to now, and the events that have been punctuated your physical life and your emotional life. And when we did that with my teacher at graduate school, what I was noticing is the impact of my physical life as a woman. And when we shared, I mentioned that. I said, I'm shocked, and I was just 31, 32, and I was already a mother and all. And I said, my life is really punctuated by physical events that have to do with me as a woman. And bless his heart, he was very happily startled by this commentary and said, you're right. I mean, we have a prejudice. We don't take that in consideration in the psychological and somatic psychology field. So that was good. A little awakening for some men and the class, to acknowledge that. And the women were nodding their head because we all had like this experience of this unique facet. So I think women have not been validated enough in our culture with their potential, their sensitivity, their talent, their capacity to intuit, which is not like something they can think through, but a knowing that comes from a different center in themselves. So being a woman in the mental health is very, it's a very unique a topic that has to be looked at from a women's angle. What's important for women? What regulates their life? What punctuates their life? Then there is the whole topic of women being considered quote unquote inferior to men, right? There is also that in some cultures more than others, but generally a worldwide a discrepancy between the value of a woman compared to a man. And that can create a state of helplessness or depression or disempowerment that affects mental health in women. When a woman has a job equal to a man but is paid a third less, that creates something on a mental level. That creates a anger, a sense of injustice, a sense of disbelief, or a sense of sadness, and so for some people, a sense of women, a sense of collapse, maybe even, a sense of despair, we could say, which can lead to more mental health issues. The way they're treated at home, considered, respected, allowed, the permission they have to do certain things over others. Again, that's a matter of culture, and I'm not generalizing, but that's a reality, right? And a lot of women have been raised in feeling that they need to ask permission to a man, a father, a husband, a brother, to a boss, for certain actions and activities or even thoughts. So that reality is also an impact on women's mental health. We have to consider when we want to support a woman in that psychological way, or just women to women support. What is the reality of all the different aspects of their reality as a woman life?
Absolutely. And I love how you're touching on the context, and you're talking about the physical context and the what we're given, what we're born with, what we're offered, the way we are, and then also the systems and the social systems in which we have been raised, and then in terms of the knowledge and the science around mental health, how it's patriarchal by nature, the way in which we have been historically treated, medicalized, pathologized. Even as a psychologist, as you're talking about, some of the challenges that we're faced with, hormonal flows. I love that language because we have a diagnosis called, PMDD. It's just to name how many of us struggle in terms of our mood and our irritability and depression, and some of difficulty concentrating and how we're feeling in our bodies during a week or two before the period or actual diagnosis for it. And so it can, for in my experience with some women, just having that name is helpful, but in general I find it quite pathologizing. It is the only and one ways in which they have been validated that there's actually a thing, that this is normal, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it's in a diagnostic manual. So it's I'm finding that there's a tension in that. But you're touching on so many truths when it comes to women's experience, and how much of that is a shared experience across culture, and some of that are more unique to particular cultures. And my experience working here, I definitely agree that some of the challenges come from the way we have been raised, or the way that women in the Middle East may be expected to behave. And so a discrepancy between what feels right, what feels good, and then being told that no, what you're saying doesn't make any sense because it's not coming from here, it's coming from here. And that somehow this is not valid or real enough. And so what I'm curious about, and leads me to the next question, is as a practitioner who has been working for 35 years in the field of healing and expanded states, I'm curious about, also as you're not just a practitioner, you're also a woman, and you're a person who also goes through life challenges just like any of us. And suffering doesn't exclude anybody, right? So what is your advice from your own experience, or perhaps in general as a practitioner, when it comes to women? What do you find helpful in grounding and centering? And if you think it would be helpful to offer also a definition of what we mean by grounding, centering, and in your experience what that is. And yeah, how do you approach women who might be coming with a few of these examples that you gave? Mm-hmm. Physical challenges, social challenges, and really struggling. What would you offer in terms of grounding and centering?
Yes, of course, I haven't worked in the Middle East per se, although I have done some work around that region. But the reality of women going through challenge and disempowerment and a sense of oppression, from the patriarchy, as you name it, has been around in my office, of course, many times and many years. The first thing, which of course is kind of obvious, but I want to name it to the audience, is to be heard. As a woman, to be heard by a woman, to be validated, to be made to feel normal. Yes, you're feeling this, no wonder. Yes, it's normal. You are not a case, you are not a disease, you are not a pathology. You are a woman going through the waves of life, right? The ebbs and flow, and your moon cycle, and your emotions, and your hormones, and your wonderful sensibility, and to just really highlight the gift that being a woman is. So I found that it was really helpful as a first step to mirror back the beauty rather than the despair, without negating, of course, the experience of my patients, but to really hear and then say, yeah, as women, we are so complex, and really bringing the we consciousness in the picture. I'm not having their experience necessarily of being oppressed or being raised in a certain way, but we as women, what is the common language that we have, the common understanding, and the pool of equality that we rest on. So that feels very important to me, and already a first step towards um, believing in themselves, not just as patient, but as women, believing in themselves and validating that those great gifts of intuition and gut feeling, and yeah, the suffering is real. We live in the world like this. You're not crazy, this, yeah. And sometimes it's worse than others if they have domestic violence or they have an oppression that is really, of course, severe. We need to also support them and empower them to take whatever step are legal in their region to seek support, and of course, do the legal route if there is one possible. The other thing I I guide women is to really validate their physical sensation, their physical feeling. Validate their shortness of breath, or their stress, or their tight guts, or the way the fear holds their body, of course, and help them really acknowledge and feel that. And then inside, or at a deeper core, I should say, connect with another seed of hope and organicity. The layers that we are feeling as women are very oppressive or heavy or tense, tension producing. And yet in the middle, right, in the core of who we are, there is a place of wellness. There's a place of knowing. It might have been stifled a lot and it's hard to hear, but to invite the women to really reconnect with what they know is true, what they know in themselves is true. I call it the seed of hope, the seed of truth, right? And so to imagine growing that, and we can do something about that later in the visualization, to really help grow that sprout and grow that tree, that can help them from within. So that's a sort of self-empowerment and self-growth. I also recommend touch. So some women are shy about self-touch, right? And I'm not talking about anything very, out of the ordinary, but just even the touch of their own hands on their own face, or in places that are really touching a hand, supporting a hand, doing things that are self-generating in terms of support and contact and soothing, and the mother touch that they can give themselves. Either they've had it or they didn't have it, or they had a problematic mother touch, but to repair that in what they can do for themselves. So I think that touch is a really big thing for women, and we are all, this is a vocabulary, a language we can really relate to. And when I of course, with women permission, I may, reach out and put a hand here, or put a hand on their shoulder, or like that, cradle the head, and for them to see what does it feel like to receive that touch. It could be just a hand or supporting a hand. Again, it's always permission and really, their consent and comfort, of course. It's for some women it's not appropriate, and we have to do self touch that way. But there is a way to work that way in instigating the power of self-soothing. So that's a self-nourishment, right? And then there is the grounding, like you're naming. Grounding is very important. We're floundering a lot when we are depressed or anxious, or we call it ungrounded, right? We are sort of flying around, and we need to remember our connection with earth, with the ground. And so that might be that I get women to stand up, right? Or being sitting and putting their feet on the ground and really feel that, and maybe lean forward and feel the weight of their body on their feet, feel the ground underneath them. There we can be also different guided visualization to emphasize this relationship with the ground and the stability. So different grounded exercise can be really helpful to anchor and give women a sense of power, healthy power, to feel standing, to feel stronger, to feel in their breath. So, we can accompany the physical experience with how they feel emotionally while they're having a physical experience. So it's not just about the body, but it's also what it evokes in them, an image, a nourishing situation, a memory maybe that they have forgotten, where they were feeling free and happy, and that can nourish them again. So there are different techniques that have come through my psychosomatic work that I like to apply, because these are tools that are easy and accessible and user friendly and not very complicated, and yet they're very potent because women read the body and the sensations in a very deep way.
That's beautiful. And uh, I love the idea of, healing and grounding, touch, and um, a lot of our psychological principles, the different kind of theoretical approaches, so many of them are all based on kind of just thought and, thinking rationally or having a different perspective. And it's quite top down.
Yeah,
And this allows for a bottom up healing, which is from the body
right.
and experiencing safety and security and a sense of calm. And what I love about that, and also being able to have resources that women are able to use and apply for themselves, is that it kind of helps in a way not to rely just on the 1 hour a week of therapy, or going to any kind of healing that requires an actual visit and financial resources or insurance coverage and so it's very helpful to have access to things that we can do for ourselves, even if it's a few minutes a day, but repeating that regularly over and over and over again. Um,
I agree with you, Eva. And what seems really powerful there is the notion of personal empowerment. Women are, we were talking, maybe a little disempowered, right? That's why they're a little confused and disoriented. They don't remember who they are. And to give them the tool to re-empower themselves and achieve a sense of, or explore, or achieve a sense of groundedness and soothing or nourishing or remembering who they are. So there's a lot of practices we can give them to do at home, a few minutes, and we can look with them what's the best time. You have kids, you have a home, you have maybe a job also. It's a 3 shifts practice as women, as we know. And so what's the best window of opportunity for you, and really work with them, because otherwise we burden them with another thing to do. So really to make that very exciting and pleasurable and titrating in small bite size, so they can really feel that those seeds that they're planting are really growing in them. And so the giving these suggestions and how is it going, and supporting them through that process of ingraining those practices. The empowerment piece is really quite startling, I find. It's almost that the fact that they're going to make 5 minutes to stand up and breathe, or touch their face and breathe and close their eyes, or anything they're going to do, the fact that they're going to remember to do that for themselves is already half the work. The intention to remember themselves is really already a self-care. Then they're going to do the practice, but the remembrance of it is half the work. And I reflect that to them. The fact that you remembered, that you felt like doing it, that you put that in your priority list, right? At some point you became the top of your priority and you did the 5 minutes. That goes a long way to make them feel good about, in fact, validating themselves and making themselves feel important to themselves.
Exactly. And I love that you mentioned self-care, because I remember in one of our conversations, you're based in California, and one of our conversations, you said, this is if you talk about self-care, and I don't want to generalize all Californians, but it's not, it wouldn't be unusual if you speak to an average person, someone in Northern California, they would definitely know what self-care means. And it's like preaching to the choir, you said. And,
Yeah.
and here, I again, uh, I'm risking some generalizing, but in my experience, I really have to explain what I mean by self-care. A lot of times, when I use the word self-care, people think I mean going for a manicure and pedicure, or going to the spa and going for the massage. And of course, those things can also be self-care with the right intention. But a lot of times self-care is, like you said, it's just that intention, and that moment of prioritizing oneself, and giving oneself a gesture of care, and so grounding is one. And I'm really curious, can you also, in your experience, what words would you use to describe what grounding means, since we're on definitions and words? If you wanted to describe to someone who's never heard about grounding, what would you say that is?
Mm-hmm. So in the world of physics, electricity can only be generated if there is a ground plug, right? It means the electricity by itself is too powerful to circulate, but it needs a ground plug to make sure that there's no surge. So the fact that the usage of the earth is necessary to conduct electricity is a good, important signal of how important grounding is. And grounding is in our world of psychology and practices, the manner in which we connect with earth. Same thing. How do we plug into earth? Just like grounding, electricity installation. How do we ground? How do we plug ourselves into the earth? So the earth has a gravity. It keeps us upright, right? It has an energy field, different potency in different places around the earth and depending on the geography, but there is a pull, like the center of the earth pulls us down, right? So that's why electricity needs grounding to function. So we need to realize that as human beings, we also depend on that connection with the earth. And it's really important to feel that sense of gravity. Cosmonauts who spend a year in the without gravity, when they come down, they need to be rehabilitated in terms of, they can get out of the capsule and walk, but then they need all kinds of things to rehabilitate their uprightness, and connection with earth, because they've lost that for months. So grounding and connecting with earth is what it is about. So there's few ways we can do that. We can walk on the beach, put our shoes off and walk on the beach. We can walk on a grassy field, on a park. We can, touch a tree. That works too, because trees are very rooted into the earth. So when we touch a tree, we touch the roots at the same time. But it means really for us to have our feet on the earth. And that's what it is. Grounding is having our feet directly connected with the earth. And that's a really originally a scientific term that has been rerouted to the psychological field to mean we need to be in our physical body. We need to be connected with earth. And it's hard to be in a physical body if we forget we are connected with earth. On a more philosophical, or I would say, eco-spiritual dimension, we can say that we are nurtured by earth. Everything we eat, the water we drink, the animal we may eat, if we eat meat, everything comes from earth. So in a way, the grounding has also to do with connecting with our nourishment, with what supports us, makes us be alive. Right? So the grounding goes with food as well. And that's why some people say, oh, this is a grounding food, because some foods have a certain weight into them that helps us feel connected with the density of the earth. So grounding has to do with feeling a density and the support and the solidity, both under us and sometimes inside us. That's why some food is called grounding food, because it kind of, I don't know, it could be mashed potatoes, or it could be pasta, something that's kind of has density and weight, not some like juice and salad. This is not quite filling that slot. So grounding is about that. It's about earth, nourishment, and connection with the real world of the support and density.
That's beautiful. I love that, description and explanation through the lens of electricity as well. And as we're just sitting here, I have a few crystals on my desk, and so that's one of the ways in which I also feel kind of a connection. It's with stones and crystals, there's definitely something about that. And I don't know much about the spiritual aspect or the different approaches of what each crystal means and all of those things. But I just love the feeling of just holding. And I posted something about this, and one of my friends commented. She said she just rubs them on her on this area here, and just the cooling effect that it has. It really helps with any tensions in the head. She's a very successful lawyer, works a lot, so I can see how that would be helpful. Uses this area.
Yeah. Well, and that's very good. That's great what you're describing, because crystals are obviously of the earth, right? Very dense aspects of compacted earth over millions of years, and they hold earth density. That's what they're about. And holding them or putting them on your throat or temple, or just holding them sometime can be really powerful. There's a lot of how could I say, in California, the use of crystals has become a little bit how could I say, minimized, or it has become kind of, oh well, crystals, another new age thing. And I think they lost their value in the eyes of people, which it's a shame, because they each have a certain message, a certain quality, and a certain healing power. And there's a lot of books about that can be accessed, and and we could use that, to help ourselves. Absolutely. I have crystals in my office, in my home, because I love their presence, and I love putting them in the sun, and then I hold them, and there's a certain way to interface with the crystals that can be very wonderful for women.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yes. So I think that is a wonderful transition, actually, to perhaps an exercise that you have so graciously offered to guide me through, which I will then share um, with our viewers. And I would like to kind of just open it up to you. This exercise is going to be, hopefully I will do my best to also share it as a separate segment. But I am ready when you are, and I'm looking forward to it, and we can just can have a very brief debriefing afterwards, and then we can close, if that's okay. Thank you.
All right. So I would like to invite you to a comfortable position where you can stay for about 10 minutes or so, and just take your time to feel your breath. Rest your back or your legs, your hands. Just allow your body and your mind to settle into a space where you can listen and receive and be guided. And I invite you to take a look inside your body, kind of a check-in, a scan of your body. You can start from your feet and going up your legs. And check as you travel through your body, check the places that are feeling well. You like them, or they feel good, or you have good sensations right now. And notice the places that are tense or places you don't like or you don't know. Disconnect. And scan your body through your legs and your belly, your pelvic floor, your belly. Slowly going up your chest. And going down your arms. And going up from your chest to your neck, and your face, your head. As you scan your body and you're noticing the places of ease and happiness, notice how they feel, the texture of wellness. They feel happy, ease, easy, spacious. Maybe they have a certain color. And then notice the places that are more tense or painful, contracted. Maybe you have histories or injuries or fear in them. And notice their colors, their density, the texture. And just notice all that, all this sort of inventory that you're noticing, scanning your body. Just be present with that for what it is. And then as you sit, notice your feet or the place of your body that touches the earth underneath you. There's a place of contact. It could be cross-legged and it could be your sitting bone, or you could be sitting in a chair and maybe your feet are on the ground. Maybe you're standing. Maybe you're laying down. Your entire back is being supported by the floor. I would like you to imagine roots of trees underneath you, coming from your body and reaching down into the earth, either from the sits bone, or your feet, or your back, just whatever makes contact with the ground. Imagine roots beautiful roots coming out of your body and reaching into the earth, finding nutrients, connection, relation with this beautiful, rich earth that feeds you, makes you feel solid, strong, certain, powerful. You can feel the nutrients of the earth coming through your roots and spreading inside your body, mixing with the beautiful parts that you've seen, with the beautiful colors, and flowing through the contracted part, the painful, frightened part. All these nutrients mixing in yourself, all these different colors, absorbing them, transforming them to a big rainbow of light and dark colors circulating into your whole body. Everything is together. Everything is accepted, swirling inside you. The beautiful, the painful, everything is transmuted, transformed. The flow of energy circulates from the roots of the earth, flows inside your vein, your brain, your organs, your musculature, your skeleton. And as everything circulates, it also goes down to the roots. And empties itself into the earth. So the flow comes up, circulates everything, and brings it back down to earth. It flushes all this circulation back into its earth, leaving you clean, cleansed with a sense of purification, of washing. And you're scanning your body and you're seeing if there is anything that needs to be swept into this circulation. Other tensions, other memories of fear, of physical pain. They are brought into this flow, moved into this big flow of circulation, of earth power. And they're coming back down to the roots into the earth, moving away from you, released into the ground. The ground will transform them. The ground will absorb them. Leaving you fresh, clear, leaving you fed, nurtured. from within. And as you feel your body in this state of cleanliness and freedom, still connected with the ground, with your roots, still in contact with this great support of earth, I invite you to connect with air, the thin, transparent life that comes to you in breath and flows through your body in invisible ways also. Every breath coming in and coming out, also bringing transformation, lightness, as you connect with the density of the earth beneath you, you also connect with the lightness, thinness, and power of air all around you and all within you. So you can feel dense and you can feel light. You can feel dark and opaque, and you can feel transparent and thin. These qualities live within you always. You can remember them just by remembering your roots, the earth, the air, and your breath. I invite you to very, very gently take a deep breath. Let it go when you're ready. Maybe with your eyes closed, you can move your hands or move your head a little bit, bring some more movement into your body, just to kind of reactivate your presence. Then when you feel ready, just gently reopen your eyes and come back to your present reality.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was wonderful. I am in a place where I just want to enjoy this feeling, but I'm also mindful that I want to kind of just briefly touch on the exercise for anyone who will do this exercise. It will be, I think, helpful to just be able to reflect on it and just identify what it was like. For me, it was very relaxing, but I think it's also very normal if there's different reactions that might come up for people as they do this exercise. realizations, things they may become aware of. You talked about noticing contractions. You talked about noticing anything that feels that it needs to be cleansed through those roots. And I'm curious about what advice you would offer, or what guidance you would offer for anyone who might struggle a little bit during exercise with focusing, because I think that's a common challenge, being able to stay focused. Of course, your voice is very soothing, and I noticed if I drifted, I came back to it, and it was a response of kind of like imagining the roots, and it can be quite transcending in a way to have that image, and to see myself as nature in that way. It's a spiritual experience. It expands, I think, consciousness in some ways, and so there's going to be different responses that people might have when they follow. So I just want to kind of reassure people that it's normal to have any kind of response. So what suggestions would you have if anyone is wondering, is this normal? What?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the tone of voice, like you said, is a kind of a trance. So you're feeling like you're being a changing of consciousness, which is an expanded state, which is a non-ordinary state. We're not talking, which is kind of a little bit like a meditation. And so we're going to a weird zone, which can feel weird for some people who are not used to it. And so I suggest that people maybe open their eyes and listen, maybe not being inside and feeling like they feel afraid about what they're remembering, or they're seeing, or they're sensing. So keep your eyes open or gazing down, but just not closed. That's the first tool. The other tool is to have a pad of paper and to write some notes along the way. It doesn't have to be a big journal writing, but things that pop up, maybe jot some notes to revisit that either with your counselor or with yourself if you want to write some more later. The other thing that came to me as you were talking was it would be good if you would put this meditation to actually have images that accompany the voice. So women would see images of roots or trees, or we could look to you and I to create some little visuals. Well, because people would then look at something and the image can instigate some inner feeling if it's too complicated to go inward. And they can do this meditation a few times too. The first time might be a little disorienting, and the second time maybe they close their eyes a little bit or not, and then they have the visual possibility to actually watch something with it, so that accompanies them, so they feel a little less disoriented and scared. But it is weird at first to imagine yourself with colors circulating. It can be a little odd, but we can create some nice visuals to help women imagine that, or to make it easier, and be less strange. Yeah,
I love that. I love the idea of combining that video with a guided meditation, and also has some images. I agree, because and sometimes people also really struggle with visualizing as well, right? They might have a hard time with imagining, and that's also not a shortcoming. It's just it just is.
Absolutely.
So there's lots of different ways in which this beautiful practice can be put into regular exercises. So Wonderful. So with that, I want to again thank you so much for your generous time. And I know it's taken us a lot to manage our time differences, and I really appreciate you making the time in your busy schedule. And if you have anything that you would like to state before we close, anything you want to mention before we wrap up, please, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm really pleased and glad and honored to be invited to this sharing, and I hope that this is the beginning of an ongoing support to the women who are looking for, you know, validation and support and healing, and that this can be helpful. And I'm really glad to have created this with you, Ava.
Thank you so much, Françoise. Thank you. I wish you a wonderful day ahead. And for us in Dubai, I'm going to say good night.
Exactly.
Sending you lots of love. Thank you so much again. Take good care. See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.